What is your role at UCI?
So I'm actually a clinical research coordinator for UCI's portion of the Brain Initiative Cell Atlas Network project, which we often refer to as the BICAN project. And then in addition to that, I'm also a junior research specialist.
What lab are you a part of? And what is the mission or vision of the lab?
I'm in Dr. Head's lab, and I'm also in Dr. Mapstone's lab. Both labs are actually in the School of Medicine. However, Dr. Head's lab is in the pathology department, and Dr. Mapstone's lab is actually in the neurology department. Dr. Head's mission is to identify key factors associated with the development of Alzheimer's disease. She's specifically focused on individuals with Down syndrome whose chance of developing Alzheimer's disease actually far exceeds that of the general population. Her goal is then to use these findings to determine a way to slow and prevent the development of the disease. And Dr. Mapstone's mission is very similar. He's actually, though, focused on using blood-based biomarkers for the early detection of age-related neurodegenerative diseases. Specifically, he's focused on studying Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. And using this information, he's working to develop a reliable biomarker that can be used in a clinical setting.
What does your research focus on? And are there any discoveries you'd like to share?
So my project, the BICAN UM1, is actually focused on building a reference brain cell atlas that outlines how neurotypical brains work in age. This atlas will actually provide detailed information about the molecular features of the cells found within each region of the brain. And in order to study this, we're actually establishing a collection of healthy, normal brains throughout development and adulthood that represent the demographic diversity found within the United States. Our portion of the project is actually specifically in charge of dissecting and analyzing 125 regions that are found within the brain. And while our portion of the project is still in the analysis phase, other researchers that are involved in this project just published the complete cellular map of the adult mouse brain in the Nature journal.
What got you interested in that research focus area?
My interest in this topic began during my second year in undergrad when I took my first neuroscience course. My professor actually came in and began the first lecture by saying that we have barely scratched the surface in our understanding of the human brain. And I understood that in order to grow and expand my understanding of the human brain, I first had to understand the basics of how the brain worked. And a very important part of that is understanding the roles of cells in each region of the brain and how those roles change with aging. Today, I'm actually, extremely privileged to be working on a project that is focused on mapping with that level of detail. And I believe that through this project, we will be developing the framework that a lot of other research will be built off of, which is just an amazing thing.
Is there a researcher who has inspired you?
Yes, actually, there have been a lot of researchers that have inspired me, but anytime someone asks me this question, a specific researcher comes to mind. And it's actually someone I met while I was in undergrad. So when I kind of had begun undergrad, I didn't know if I wanted to be a doctor, a pharmacist, or a scientist. But I did decide to join a stem cell research lab. And I was actually paired with her. She was my graduate student. And I actually worked on a project with her during my time in that lab. She ended up being extremely instrumental in my decision to pursue a career in research. Not only was she supportive, kind, and extremely knowledgeable, but she was also just an excellent teacher. She taught me the values and skills that were important for being a good researcher with integrity. And it was also important to me because by having her as my graduate student, I was able to see someone who looked like me and helped, that would help me to see myself as a researcher and see the potential in me pursuing this as a career. She taught me the importance of having Black scientists in academia and how increasing diversity will help promote equity and fairness in the advancements of medical knowledge, which will ultimately help to reduce the health disparities that we're currently seeing today.
Is there any advice you have for someone who's interested in research or brain donation?
My number one piece of advice for anyone interested in brain donation would actually be to participate. I don't think people realize just how important brain donation is for helping us advance our understanding of how the brain works. Unfortunately, we're limited with what we can learn about the brain while a person is living. We can perform neurocognitive tests and, we can do extensive imaging such as fMRI scans or PET scans. And this can provide us with a good amount of information. However, the majority of what we learn about the brain actually comes from physically analyzing brain tissue. And what we found that is, unfortunately, the majority of people who want to donate their brains are those who are affected by neurological diseases and disorders. And while these brains are crucial for research, we're really lacking in the number of brains that we've gotten from healthy, cognitively normal individuals. And those brains are equally as important. Unfortunately, we are not able to learn anything about diseased brains until we have those healthy brains to compare them to. I also want people to understand the importance of having a diverse cohort of donors. What we found is that there's so many different environmental and genetic factors that play a role in how the brain functions and how the aging process occurs. And we've also found that no two brains are identical. And so it's our goal of gaining a comprehensive understanding of how the brain functions. It's important for us to study donors of different races, ethnicities, regions around the world, and people from different walks of life.
What parts of the mission and vision of CFAR-DS appeals to you or inspires you?
What I really love and appreciate about CFAR-DS is how it promotes research centered around the community and the quality of life of individuals with Down syndrome. This is something that's actually really, really important to me because about a year or so after undergrad, I decided to actually take a break from research and to focus on my other passion, which is actually teaching, and specifically teaching students with learning and developmental disabilities. And when I finally decided to go back to research, I wanted to go back to make a difference in the lives of my students and the lives of others with neurological disabilities and diseases. With that in mind, my primary goal was to make sure that there was a direct connection between my research and the people that I was trying to help. And I feel like that goal aligns with the values and the missions of CFAR-DS. One of the main goals of CFAR-DS is outreach and developing a relationship with those in the Down syndrome community. I think that it is extremely crucial to develop a relationship with those in the community, because by doing so, we're able to be better advocates and scientists, because it forces us to constantly think about how our research will improve their quality of life.